Yeah. But wait, we're not done.
We're in Stillwater, Oklahoma. This is Bill Gardner. What is a sound system?
A sound system is a system that is sound and it's very structurally intact. Is that close? Am I close at all? I really have no idea. I'm sorry.
This is Mary. This is Tony. My bumper and his beard should have an Instagram account. We call it Bumpers and Beards.
Bumpers and Beards.
So,
good.
What is a sound system?
It's something that makes you hear better.
This is the Colonel. What is a sound system?
Sound system? The only sound system that really matters is the one that goes boom. That's the sonic boom that is made when you break the sound barrier. That's the only sound system.
With what plane?
No, the F-16, of course.
Good night, sweetheart. Well, it's time to go.
Da, 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 da.
Oh, we're having a moment.
Okay. This is Monica, the wife. Kristen, she's a little busy. What's a sound system?
What's a sound system?
Yes, what's a sound system?
The thing that we use at church to turn the sound on.
This is Pastor Carson, Brian Carson, Bowling Green, Kentucky. What is a sound system?
What is a sound system?
Yeah, I thought I was clear on that.
I didn't know I was going to be interviewed. It is
It's a device possessed by the devil.
device that we use to project sound through an auditorium or a space to enable people to hear.
This is Kale and this is Billy. We got a question for you. What is a sound system?
I think it depends on the venue and what you're trying to accomplish.
A group of electronic components put together to reproduce a sound.
This is Monica, the wife. What is a sound system?
It's my husband's girlfriend.
So what's your definition? Comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts, and let's carry on this conversation of what is a sound system. While you're there, if you're tight on time, look at the video index and feel free to jump around to whatever section is going to provide you the most help. But I hope you watch the whole thing, because in a few minutes we're going to look at 3 different sound systems. And I want you to look at the similarities of how we can scale a sound system from small to medium to large. So here's my definition of a sound system. A collection of equipment, some passive, some active, all skillfully arranged to produce the desired result of amplifying the input. Simply said, we need to amplify the input source so all can hear. Now there's several different types of sound systems. Kale hit it on the head. It depends what you're talking about. So there's theaters, there's home theaters, there's car audio, there's PA or just general announcements, but what I'm a part of is called sound reinforcement, and that is the hardest type of pro audio to be a part of, because in real time, you're having to take a live input source and amplify it so everybody in the auditorium or the venue can hear right the first time. It's the hardest type of pro audio. And what's even harder is when you get to speech, everybody knows what speech should sound like, because it's just like you and I right now. We're having a conversation one-on-one. You have ears, I have ears. It's the most natural and basic form of communication. So we all know what it should sound like in our ears. When we get into a large venue or an auditorium, we're immediately critical of the sound because we know what it should sound like. So that's the hardest part of sound reinforcement, is trying to reproduce the spoken word in real time right the first time. And watch out for this little trick. There's sound contractors that will make their sound systems sound really good with their type of music they want to play. But the true test of a sound system is how well it can amplify speech. So why do we need a sound system? Well, it's simple. Most modern day designs don't take acoustics into effect. They're more worried about aesthetics, flow, and the almighty dollar. When we assemble into an auditorium, we have a person, we have a presenter. It may be through music, it may be through the spoken word, and we have a congregation. Now it's been said if you're further away than 6 feet, you start to lose that personal, intimate, one-on-one connection. Your communication is hindered, and in any space, the more people you add, the noise floor goes up. So we have to use a sound system to help amplify the input source so all can hear and still have that personal, intimate, one-on-one connection. So let me ask you the question again. What is a sound system? Yeah, I know we've discussed it's a collection of electronic equipment, some passive, some active. But could a sound system be a tool or an instrument used to minister to somebody that's just received some bad news? Maybe they've just lost somebody. Maybe they've just received a diagnosis. Could a sound system be a tool used to where a person has the words fitly spoken, a person has music that without that sound system, they can't have that personal connection, that personal communication? Could the sound system be used to help strengthen a marriage, to help form a stronger bond between a husband and a wife? Is a sound system something that could be used to help a grieving family that's just buried a child? A sound system is a tool to be used. And if that tool is not used properly, it will be a greater hindrance than not having a sound system. My name's Jude. Thank you for watching. And this is my sound advice. This is PA4. This is one of my rental sound systems. When I rent systems, I want them to sound the best that they can. So I don't rent out just your basic equipment. There's a lot of work that goes into making good sound. So let's break down this, my simplest sound system. The most common input for any sound system is a microphone, a corded microphone. This is just a standard dynamic corded microphone. It's wired, it's reliable, you're not going to have very many problems with a dynamic or a condenser corded microphone. This is the lapel that I use, made by Shure QLXD. This is the omnidirectional lapel microphone I use, the MX150O. If you want to step up to a head-worn microphone, this is what I use, the Countryman E6. This is terminated with the Mini XLR that Shure uses. Shure calls it the TQG. It's a TA4F connector. This gives great sound if you want the head-worn style. Maybe your setup requires something like this. This is an unbalanced 1/4-inch plug. This would be used a lot with electric guitars. It takes the electric guitar signal or whatever line level signal that you choose to put into this, and it digitizes it into an RF frequency. Maybe you need a cordless wireless handheld. This is what I use, the Shure QLXD. Another common setup would be a pulpit or a podium or a gooseneck microphone. These make great options. I try to use the longest gooseneck possible. And let's not forget about this. This is an 1/8 inch to 1/4 inch adapter. You'd use this on keyboards, computers, projectors. I use it on my iPad whenever I need to plug in my iPad to a sound system, 1/8 inch to 1/4 inch. This is a line level input. Now the next process is the processing. Once the sound comes into the mixing console through our preamp, we start to process it. Anything that we do with volume or equalization is a part of the processing process. We have a 3-band equalizer on this console, and then we have volume adjustments. Very simple setup, but it's very powerful. This is an 8-channel rack-mounted mixing console. The output of the mixing console then feeds our DBX processor. This is the Venue 360. This is what I use more than any other processor. This gives us compression. This gives us limiting. If we're doing a biamped or a triamped sound system, this gives us the crossover abilities. We can take out our feedback through notch filters. We can tune the sound system doing some very broadband equalization through the 3rd octave equalizer. This is a game changer. This is what will take any good sound system and make it sound better. The 3rd section of our sound system is the speaker amplification. Now this is a single channel rack mounted amplifier. It gives us 4 output channels. Now this small little amplifier will give us 150 watts of amplifying power. In this small sound system, 150 watts is going to go a long ways. We have 4 speaker channels. So typically my setup is house left, house right, a floor monitor mix, and instrument monitor mix. This is the 4th and final section of the sound system. This is what takes the electrical energy and turns it back into a mechanical energy through the diaphragms. This is a typical speaker I use. This is an Electro Voice SX300. Been on the market for a really, really long time. It's a 2-way speaker, a 12-inch woof, and then a high-frequency horn. This is what gives us the intelligibility in our sound system. This is what gives us the depth or the punch, the woofer. This is the floor monitor we use. This is the Minimizer, the 832. This is what gives us the confidence back on the stage or the platform. This is what gives the instruments the ability to hear what's going on different parts of the stage or the platform. So these are the two main outputs. You got a house and you have monitors. So let's take a look at a medium-sized sound system. We'll start with the input section. In this auditorium, we have a pulpit mic. Again, this is a MX418 microphone. We have vocal mics, and you can see here 1 wireless and 3 wired mics or corded mics, and we have a microphone for the piano. The processing section of the sound system is real simple and it's really scalable. Now I hope you pay attention because next we're going to look at my church's auditorium sound system, and I want you to see if you can figure out all the different components that we can use to scale up or down the size and the requirements of the system. Here's a typical analog mixing console. These are a great price point. They're clean and quiet for what you pay for. It's the Allen & Heath Z series. I put in a bunch of these. Here's your physical input, your analog lines coming in, equalization, monitor routing, and then mixing for our house speakers. This system has house speakers and then a floor monitor mix only. So we have 2 zones, house and floor monitors. The output of this mixing console then comes over and feeds the equipment rack. Our typical power conditioner, look at that. Probably should put this in a museum, a tape deck. VHS, boy, I haven't seen these in a long time. Boy, we put a lot of these in when DVDs were hot, but a lot of people still had VHS. Okay, so the output of the mixing console hits our compressor. Compressor then comes out to a 3rd octave equalizer, and this is some pretty wild tuning, but this tuning is what we need to work with the speakers that are in the room and then the room acoustics. The output of the 3rd octave equalizer or the system tuning then drops into a notch filter or a very narrow band filter. We put in hundreds of these until Ashley discontinued them probably about 10 years ago or so. This is what takes out the feedback. We tune the feedback frequencies very tight up to a 20th of an octave, and then we notch them out in 1 to 15 decibel increments. And then we have 2 sets of amplifiers. This is an Ashley amplifier. This outputs at 70 volts to power our house speakers, and then we have an Altec Lansing, just a small 100-watt amplifier that takes care of the floor monitors. The output section of this auditorium is different because we have a low head height. We have a drop tile ceiling that's a little bit over 8 feet, and that's it. So we have a hard order to be able to get all the sound from the front, the stage or platform area, to the very back row. So the best way to do it in this low head height, and if you're not dealing with a lot of low bass music, is a distributed ceiling speaker system. So we have probably 50 8-inch coaxial ceiling speakers in this room. The rule of thumb is the distance from floor to ceiling. So if we're 8 feet from floor to ceiling, that's the distance on center from speaker to speaker. So you can see there's our speaker center. These are 2-foot ceiling tiles. There's 2 feet, 4 feet, 6 feet, 8 feet. So that is the floor height to ceiling height that is on center from speaker to speaker. That way, that will ensure us even distribution all the way across the room. Now in this auditorium, they only have chairs about halfway back, but you can see our ceiling speakers go all the way to the back of the room. And that way, no matter how far away you are from the person speaking or singing, you're going to get consistent volume everywhere in the room. And our second speaker zones is right there. Those are our minimizers, floor monitors. Some people call them fold back monitors. They give the person speaking, teaching, singing, they give them the volume they need to hear, so the confidence level. And then also, if this instrumentalist ever needed a floor monitor, we could put another zone right here and throw sound up into her face. That way she can hear what she needs. So you can see this sound system is very simple and it's scalable. If we need to add different types of speakers, we can. If we need to add different zones for instrument monitors, we can do that real easy with the equipment that we have here. We're here at my church, Southwest Baptist Church in Oklahoma City. If this is your first time to join us, if you would raise your hand and our ushers would give you a little bit of information. I've always wanted to say that. So let's look at the input section. All of the input audio happens on our stage or platform area, except for any video playback. That's the only exception. Everything else originates from this plane. So let's look at what we have here. So this is our typical lapel that we use. We can change this out and put line level inputs onto the transmitter. We can also change this out to a head horn, but our bread and butter is a lapel. This is the MX150O. It's an omnidirectional element. This is what we use for all of our preaching. We'll put this on instruments. Phenomenal sound. I guess that's part of the input, not of the sound system, but the, I guess you could say, acoustic sound system. So batteries are good. That will get us through a good church service. The next section is our pulpit mic. This is a Shure MX418, 18-inch gooseneck. This captures all of the audio that comes from the pulpit area. So our typical microphone that we use for vocals is a corded microphone. This is the Artist Elite 3300. We have 10 of these, so no matter what microphone we're using on our vocals, they all sound the same. Yes, I use corded mics as the primary vocal mic because we don't have to deal with all the problems that wireless mics will present. Plus, this is a cheaper option than wireless. So we have 5 corded vocal mics, and I follow the resistor color code: black, brown, red, orange, yellow. And then on this side, we have green, blue, violet, gray, white. In addition to the corded vocal mics, we have 4 wireless mics. This is the Shure Beta 87 head. We have 4 of these, and I use a red, white, blue, black windscreen. Our primary instrument for our church is the grand piano. We have 2 of them. This is a 9-foot grand, and I believe this is a 6'6" grand. We use 2 of the Crown PZM 30D elements to capture the piano. We capture it in stereo. A big part of any of our church services is the church choir. This choir loft seats about 90 voices. We have sopranos, altos, tenors, basses. So I use 4 mics on the choir. This section is our soprano. So we have 1 mic that picks up the sopranos, basses, tenors, and altos. One of the hardest spots to mic at our church is the baptistry. It sounds like a cage, a tunnel, a tube. So we use a Audio-Technica shotgun microphone. Works great. The second section is all of the processing. This is where we take all of the physical analog and digital inputs and we start to mix. All of our wireless mic receivers are on the side here. That is the mixing console. That's where all the preamps are, the processing. That's where we store all the scenes, the shows. This is where I take all the physical inputs that we just went through, and this is now where I start to mix. I mix the frequencies and I mix the volumes. This is my musical instrument. Even though I'm not creating music or creating noise, I'm amplifying it, but I treat it as a musical instrument. Very much hands-on. If I have an open microphone, my hands are on the faders. If I'm using wireless mics, I am constantly keeping tabs on the receivers. I'm looking at the signal strength, I'm looking at the antenna transmission strength, and I'm looking at the battery. So when I'm using Shure with a Shure chargeable battery, it gives me an accurate hour and minute readout on the receiver. One of the collaborations that Alan and Heath has done is with Shure. So you can see right here on this channel, this is the bank. I can see the receiver settings. So I'm just going to tap that. We're going to come in here and look at the preamp setting. We'll enlarge that. I'm looking at the receiver data. There's our frequency. Here is our RF signal strength, radio frequency. This is our analog signal strength. And I'm able to change the transmission volume level from this location, up or down. And there's the battery strength. Welcome to the bowels of our auditorium sound system. This is a part that nobody ever gets to see. There's 2 things I want to show you in this room. Of course, the equipment behind me, but we're finally getting air conditioning put in the space. So you can see the ceiling's all torn up. They're putting in a mini split. This is a cassette, and this will give me cooling in the summer and heat in the winter. The cooler we can keep our electronic equipment, the longer it will run. If your equipment runs hot, it's going to wear out quicker. And this is a sizable investment worth maintaining. This equipment rack is about 7.5 feet tall. Let's break it down. So here's the rest of our system processing. Now on the mixing console, I told you we were doing processing. We're worried about frequency and volume for individual microphone channels. This is where we do all of the system tuning for all of our different zones that we have. Are all run through our equalizers. Now at one point this was loaded full of analog equipment, but as the years have changed, the analog has been phased out. I have switched exclusively to the Venue 360 made by DBX. This is our main house tuning. We have our monitor tunings, we have our left and rights and sub tunings all going through these 3 drive racks. This 4th drive rack, this is a spare. This is unplugged from the network. This is unplugged from the audio. This is unplugged from the high voltage power input. This is our insurance policy for our sound system. When we're working with digital, we have battery backup. Not only is our equalizers on our battery backup, but now we get into our amplification. Our horn amplifier is on the battery backup. So if we ever lose power, not only is the sound booth on battery backup, but our equalizers and then our horn amps. So we have about 12 minutes to be able to operate and get communication to the people in the auditorium. Our third part of our sound system is the speaker amplification. We have 26 channels of amplification, and our amps are ranging anywhere from 150 watts to 300 watts. When you have good, efficient speakers, you don't have to have a lot of power. Our drivers for our horns are rated at 32 watts, so our horn amplifier can output at 150. So you don't need big amplifiers to handle efficient speakers. So these take care of all of our different zones, our woofers, our left and right speakers, our central clusters, and then all the different monitor mixes. On this rack, this is our 70 volt system. This is all of our under balcony delay speakers, our foyer speakers, baptistry speakers, bathroom speakers. They all get powered from these 70 volt amplifiers. The output section is quite complicated, and this is where you can scale it in any size venue or church that you're working at. This auditorium seats about 1,500. It just depends who you ask. So if you're a fire marshal, we seat about 1,500. Now we have a main center cluster which hits almost every seat in the room. We have a low-hanging balcony that wraps around, a horseshoe balcony. There's some spots where the cluster, the center cluster, cannot hit that section, so we have delay speakers or delay rings. We have 3 zones of delays. So we have zone 1, zone 2, zone 3. Sound travels at 1,130 feet per second, so we need to make sure that we time align the sound from the central cluster to the seats underneath the balcony. Not only that, this is a pitched floor. So we may have 10 foot from ceiling to ear, where we may only have about 9 or 8 foot from ceiling to ear. So in those 3 delay zones, we also have to balance the volume because the speakers get closer to the ears. And so if we had the same volume up there as we do back here with those speakers, it would be much louder for the people back here. Our central cluster, which is that right there, that hits every section in the auditorium. But then over the years, I've decided to spice things up a little bit. So we've added a left and a right. So from that wall to that wall, all across there is nothing but speakers. Left, center, right, plus we have dual 18 subs. And then the organ has most of its speakers across the front as well. Another forgotten section of the output of any sound system is all of the monitors. If we can give people the sense that they can hear normally in a big room, so if they can feel like that the audience can hear them, we're going to help the presenter, the singer, the preacher be more comfortable. So monitors are really important for giving the confidence to the person on the platform or the stage. Our first monitor mix is our choir monitors. So it's really good. There's left, center, right for the choir. It's really good that the entire choir is able to hear what's going on. Now the choir cannot hear themselves. We do not bring the choir mics back through the choir monitors, but mainly the pianos. The pianos give pitch and tempo, and then the song leader will give direction as well. Aux 2 is these 2 floor monitors, and this covers the main area of the platform or the stage. If we have any group singing, solos, preaching, speaking at the pulpit mic, they get their cues from the floor monitors. Aux 3 is our organ monitor, and with the organ, probably 60 feet away from the pianos, it's really important that the organist can hear what the pianos are doing so the organist can stay in time. And vice versa, our two pianists, they need to be able to hear what's going on with the organist and then also with the pulpit and then also anybody that's singing from over there. So they're probably a good 30 feet from the pulpit. So we have two monitor mixes. This would be aux 5 and aux 4. The two piano players have different hearing requirements, so we give them independent mixes. What's really fascinating to think about is on this platform or this stage, this is where the sound enters the sound system. We go through thousands of feet of wire, a bunch of processing, and then in this same physical plane, we put the sound back into the auditorium. And this is happening with a very, very low latency or delay.